On a winter's day in 1946, a crowd of more than 1,500 eager fans gathered at San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge, hoping to catch a glimpse of a movie star. And not just any movie star, but filmdom's biggest, Humphrey Bogart. Bogart had come to the city by the bay to film scenes for his latest production, Dark Passage, and his fans had come out in force to greet him. His co-star, Lauren Bacall, was in the center of the pandemonium surrounding her new husband's presence. It was noted director Howard Hawks who had first brought Bacall to Hollywood on a personal contract. He had seen her picture on a magazine cover and believed that he could mold her into a star. But Hawks' ego was badly bruised when Bacall fell in love with Humphrey Bogart while making To Have and Have Not.
Lauren Bacall made such a striking screen debut in To Have and Have Not. That was a tough act to follow. You don't get parts that are such showcases every day of the week. And that film was a showcase for her, set her up to become a star. And it worked.
Regardless of her success, Hawks immediately lost interest in his find and sold the remainder of her contract to Warner Brothers. No longer protected by Hawks' guidance, the studio promptly miscast her as a British aristocrat in Confidential Agent. The reviews were mixed to bad. The release of The Big Sleep helped to somewhat salvage Bacall's reputation, but from that point forward, she would never trust the studio's judgment again. After completing The Big Sleep early in 1945, Lauren Bacall found herself struggling to establish a career in films, while at the same time trying to build a home life with her new husband. Almost from the start, Bacall and the studio disagreed over the roles they expected her to play, like her husband had done so many times in the past. Bacall chose to go on suspension rather than work in films she considered wrong for her. Naturally, her husband supported her 100%. Humphrey Bogart had first read The Dark Road by novelist David Goodis while it was still in galleys. Bogart was intrigued and passed the manuscript on to Warner Brothers producer Jerry Wald. Wald was one of the studio's top producers, turning out a string of successes that included such titles as Across the Pacific and Mildred Pierce. Originally, Warner Brothers was reluctant to film such a bleak story as The Dark Road, but the studio inevitably succumbed under the combined pressures of both Bogart and Wald. As soon as the property was purchased, the studio brought out writer David Goodis to help translate his novel to the screen. Goodis was born in Philadelphia in 1917. His first novel, The Dark Road, was published in 1939. When Goodis arrived in Hollywood, he was considered something of an eccentric in a town noted for its eccentrics. After his time in Hollywood, Goodis continued writing novels, and over the next 12 years he turned out a dozen books. His novels have served as the basis for a number of films. Goodis died at the age of 49. His books, popular in their day, are now mostly out of print and largely forgotten. After Goodis turned in his first draft, the studio decided to bring in writer-director Delmer Daves to rework the final script. Delmer Daves was born in San Francisco in 1904, and although he earned a law degree from Stanford University, he quickly gravitated to motion pictures, beginning as a property man on the Metropolitan lot in 1927. Dave soon moved to MGM, where he impressed director Sam Wood with his technical advice on the film The Duke Steps Out. As a result, Daves was given the chance to write his own scripts, often with small parts for himself. He came to Warner Brothers in 1934 as a screenwriter, where his work included The Petrified Forest, a film that would prove to be a significant landmark in the career of Humphrey Bogart. He made his directorial debut in 1943 with Destination Tokyo, and became known as one of the most genial, easygoing, and intelligent directors.
Gentlemen, our destination is Tokyo.
Although it was not his sole consideration in wanting to do Dark Passage, as the story was now called, Bogart was aware that the part of Irene Jansen might be right for Lauren Bacall. Wald and Daves considered other actresses, including Swedish newcomer Vivica Lenfors, but the chemistry between Bogart and Bacall could not be ignored.
They'd already made To Have and Have Not and The Big Sleep by now. They'd already gotten married, and they were a popular screen team, and Warner Brothers was happy and eager to put them back together in a movie.
The end of World War II brought changes to the way films were being made. No longer content to work in the artificial confines of a studio soundstage, many directors were reaching out for a deeper realism that only actual location shooting could provide. Delmer Daves fought for and was given permission to shoot Dark Passage on location in the city of San Francisco. While on location, Bogart, Bacall, and most of the company stayed at Nob Hill's famous Mark Hopkins Hotel.
He and Bacall were terrific, and it was a nice time up in San Francisco for them. And Bogart had a great regard for Delmer Daves, the director of the film.
Today, Dark Passage is known for its stark atmospheric photography as well as its innovative use of the first-person camera.
Hey, don't we know each other?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I guess you're right. I haven't got any rich friends. I thought one of my old pals might have struck it rich, though.
Robert Montgomery had used the same device, where the camera is the character, in his adaptation of Raymond Chandler's The Lady in the Lake. Daves was able to handle the effect on Dark Passage with more success, owing largely to the creation of a new handheld camera at his disposal.
200.
The first-person camera effect, although an interesting innovation, was not well received back at the studio. For half the movie, Bogart's face cannot be seen, something that did not sit well with Jack Warner.
If a man like me didn't like a fellow, he could surely fix him up for life. Make him look like a bulldog or a monkey.
It was something that was being tried out at that point, a gimmick, and interesting to see. But you also wonder, as Bogart, I think, himself wondered, is why would they be paying him all that money and put him in a film when people are only going to see him, for about 20 minutes in the movie?
Bogart himself remarked, "I can just hear Jack Warner scream. He's paying me all this money to make the picture, and nobody will even see me until it's a third over." Indeed, Jack Warner was not pleased, but at that stage there was little he could do about it. The film is also remembered for its strong supporting cast. Tom DeAndrea as the lonely cabbie, Housley Stevenson as the disgraced doctor, Bruce Bennett as Bob, and Agnes Moorehead as Madge Raff all gave standout performances.
You wouldn't care if Perry found me and killed me.
And virtually every part in this film, and this is not a great movie, it's a good movie, a good solid film, an entertaining film, but every part is filled by somebody interesting.
Even with its innovative camera work, bold direction, and strong cast, the movie opened to negative reviews. The film fared poorly at the box office as well, and was pulled from a number of theaters.
I think that perhaps the studio would have liked to have seen more come out of it. But it's a tough subject matter for a tough time. That there was so much worry about communist scare, and it's kind of a paranoia in the land about a number of things. And this film was kind of cutting close to the bone on a lot of it.
But it wasn't just negative reviews that wounded its box office chances. At the time of the release of Dark Passage in 1947, the fear of communist infiltration in the film business had resulted in many members of the industry being called before Congress to declare whether or not they were members of the Communist Party. Humphrey Bogart and a number of other like-minded stars, writers, and directors felt that this was an infringement on their rights as citizens. They formed the Committee for the First Amendment and voted to travel together to Washington as a means of showing support for those they felt were being deprived of their rights.
It was interesting. He had gone back to Washington as a member of the Committee for the First Amendment, and it was to at first offer support for the writers and directors who were being called before the House Un-American Activities Committee, and in what became a group of 40 or so prominent Hollywood people, Bogart and Bacall being the most prominent at the time, because so much had been in about their marriage and because of Bogart's stature as an actor. They were kind of perceived as the leaders, although John Huston and John Dunn really were the true minds behind it.
As the journey began, the committee had the backing of the press. But the actual hearings disintegrated into a circus and the press turned on them. Bogart, under a great deal of pressure from the studio, printed a statement saying that he had been a dope to join the committee. As a result, some members felt betrayed by Bogart and cut off their friendship with him. From that point on, Bogart would be forever torn by his decision to make a retraction.
So Bogart, I think, had a terrifically difficult time regaining his own sense of value in some way for what he had done. And it was a very tough time for him.
Ticket sales on Dark Passage picked up somewhat after Bogart's apology, but it still never became the big success Bogart and Bacall had hoped.
Dark Passage is a film very much of its time, from that period in the late 40s when what we now call film noir really blossomed.
Even without rave critical reviews, audiences still appreciated seeing the beloved couple on screen together. Bogart and Bacall, two of the entertainers of the 20th century who can justifiably be called legends.